What's going on, you guys? So Grand Tactician posted another dev blog. Actually, it was a couple of weeks ago, but I wanted to actually make a video on it because, well, I love this game. The game hasn't even come out yet, and I'm so pumped for it. So let's just dive right into it. All right. In our previous blog, we discussed the story of the game showing one of our chapter videos. The war, our main character, is divided into 4 chapters. Some followers of the blog were concerned we would use these chapters to steer the war along the historical lines from First Manassas to Vicksburg to Petersburg and so on. But fear not. The chapters are there to carry the story, not the decisions made by the player. That's awesome. So we're going to have like a branching campaign. So whatever you start out in Manassas can lead to something completely different. You might start at First Manassas and end at Washington. You never know. Like revealed previously, each chapter will have some objectives to complete and to keep alive the war effort of your nation. Instead of directing the player to move a certain direction, the objectives can be achieved in multiple ways. The main objective is to crush the enemy's morale. Once the other side breaks, the game will end. This could happen early on in the game or later than historically. It all depends on the campaign events orchestrated by the player and the opposing AI. I think that's really important. There's certain Civil War games like Civil War II, which is one of my favorite. Actually, right now, it's my favorite Civil War game until this one comes out, and then it's going to be replaced. But in that game, I always tried as the Union to end the war within like the first year. I would try to like go around Manassas or, try to find some way to get out Richmond and take the Confederate capital by the end of the year, but it's basically next to impossible. And if you were able to achieve that, let me know how you did that. Chapter 1 is the time before open hostilities, but the game cannot be won there. What's the point of a Civil War game if there is no Civil War? That's a good point. There are certain historical facts we are following to make sure the Civil War will erupt. For example, the Southern player cannot simply choose to abolish slavery before secession, as then there are most probable would not have been a secession in the first place. There will be a chance to do this later, though, but even then it's not a simple thing to do, nor without drawbacks, because that's what happened historically. I love my black coffee. Ooh. In Chapter 2, as described in the previous blog, there will be objectives to direct how the war will evolve. For example, winning the first major battle in the war will be an objective for both sides. And this battle will have more weight than any later battles in what comes to morale of the citizen. In general, the morale will continue to go down on both sides, the speed being dependent on campaign events like victories, losses, casualties. Some objectives will boost morale, for example, by winning multiple consecutive battles like the Confederates, Chancellorsville, Fredericksburg kind of thing, or taking a fight to the enemy's territory, Gettysburg. Then there are historical objectives that the player can try to achieve to gain the upper hand, like for the Confederacy, capture border states and to make them succeed and officially join the Confederacy. In chapters 2 and 3, there are also objectives to influence the Union elections. During the war, there were 2 main elections, the House of Representatives election in 1862 and the presidential election of 1864. In either case, if Republicans, Mr. Lincoln's party, would have lost, there would have been a chance of turmoil in Union policymaking. If the Union support can be lowered enough, the elections will not play out as they did historically, and the nation will be further divided, driving the Union towards peace with the Confederacy, which is one way for the South to win the game. If events follow the historical lines, in the end, the war will end in exhaustion, with one side breaking first, and for the Confederacy, the underdog in the game, there is, for example, an objective to cause great enough casualties to make the northern spirits waver, even if own casualties would also be high. Policies. Many readers of the Engineer blog would have been asking about how we will implement research or politics in the game. Regarding the latter, you will see some hints above, but in the big picture, we will not handle internal or partisan policies any further. There's something that happens in the background. Instead, we have a game mechanic called policies, where players can set the guidelines for his nation to follow. The policies are linked to finances. Players whose actions are government funded will need money for the war effort. With the collected funds, players will recruit and pay military upkeep, but there is more. With government subsidies, players can influence the economy of the nation, trade, diplomatic relations with the European superpowers, recruiting, public order, policy making. And from these, we can take a closer look at the policies. Both policies have a policy tree available with some 20 policies and a similar amount of acts in them. Policies provide certain bonuses to the nation. Only a limited number can be chosen at a time. Okay. This forces the player to prioritize, as he cannot have it all. That's good. Funding branch of policies, also new means of collecting government funds. Military policies also allow new means of recruitment and so on. With industrial focus, players can unlock new weapon types to produce And with the diplomacy policies, new import weapon types become available. Each policy branch has multiple levels in it, and these levels are unlocked when moving to next chapters. That's awesome. Players can change the policies to follow, but this will take some time, which stimulates the political debate needed. Diverting money to policy making shortens the delays and allows more policies simultaneously. Acts, on the other hand, are one-time political decisions that the player will need to live with for the rest of the game. You can see a number of union acts in the bottom row of the image above. Let's take a look at that. So you got like confiscation, emancipation, militia act, enrollment. Yeah, so these are one-time things because, you know, you can't just emancipate and say, well, no, we're not emancipating anymore. I'm taking that back. You can't do that. U.S. colored troop regiments, that's awesome. 54th Massachusetts, which reminds me, I got to buy it. I think it's like $7.99 on iTunes. All right, so where we are. Acts are not only limited in number, but they can be accessed only via a certain policy, act, or a combination. Each act will bring a benefit, but also some drawbacks, so choose wisely. For with militia acts, players can introduce longer contracts to volunteer service to make his armies more effective in the long run, but this will reduce the amount of men willing to volunteer. Interesting. And when our volunteers, there are possibility to introduce recruitment bounties. Wow, that's cool. With more volunteers available for money, but also introducing disciplinary issues in the ranks. That's awesome. Love that. Oh man, this is awesome. Wow. Or maybe one wishes to introduce conscription, allowing drafting, which is going to take it even beyond disciplinary issues. The policies and acts also allow change in the course of history. The North could end up with a great relations with the natives or Europeans, while the South could try to industrialize and at a later stage even moderate or abolish slavery with the possibility to recruit Confederate States colored troops. But like I said, all this will come with a price and could also cause the player's side to lose the game in the long run. Wow, this is awesome. I love the fact that the South can abolish slavery and recruit Confederate States colored troops. That's awesome. And then they can industrialize early. That's amazing. Like the Grand Tacticians against Micromanagement. Like the Scribe, players have a manageable amount of tools available to change the course of history without the need to micromanage minor details. But if the player feels even this is too much responsibility to bear, both the finances and policies can be given to the AI to handle. That's awesome. I love that. So I am more of like a Vicky player, Victoria 2 kind of player, where I do love to dive into the finances and policies. But I know there's some people out there that are like, look, I just want to focus on the military side. Like, I don't want to play a financial game. And I totally sympathize with you. There's certain times where I'm like, you know what, I really don't want to deal with like making factories and stuff. I just want to like be Lee and attack kind of thing. So I love that the fact that they're giving you a choice. You know, I feel like that's really awesome. One thing that like with Hearts of Iron 4, I was actually playing recently, where as I was playing, I had to kind of always manage the resources. So like if I increased, I guess, the amount of planes I wanted to make, right? I would have to go to another country and say, look, I need more resources of steel or whatever, right? And I have to constantly do that every time I make changes, so it's just a lot of micromanagement. It takes me away from the game. In Hearts of Iron 3, they allowed the AI to kind of manage that, which was awesome, and I always chose that. So I love the fact that Grand Tactician is making that possible. So huge props. Thank you, Grand Tactician, for that, because that's awesome. So I am really, really motivated about this game. I cannot wait. I know it's coming out in the summer, and it's just, wow. And it's absolutely incredible. So hopefully you guys are as pumped as me for this game, because this is I think this is going to be the blockbuster of the year. Like, honestly. This is, to me at least, because I love the Civil War. You know, I'm like fascinated with Civil War battlefields. And then this game is literally making everything I want in a strategy game possible. So this is awesome. All right, catch you guys in the next one.